Most of the focus on campaign 2020 so far has been on the very crowded field of Democrats running for the right to face President Trump next fall. We thought we'd take a look at the campaign operation on the Republican side, which kicked off the very day he was inaugurated. Brad Parscale is the president's campaign manager and joins us. Welcome to Face the Nation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's my first time here.
Yeah. You've got kind of an unusual resume, a background in the digital space, in marketing. You had no political experience up until 2016.
Other than being an American.
But then you became a campaign manager this time around. Yeah. So is this really about marketing? Is that what political campaigns are about these days?
Well, I definitely had a crash course over the 2016 cycle. I was brought on February of 2015. I got to sit along a lot of experts. We had a lot of people that were political experts sitting around. But yeah, running a re-election is a lot about marketing, advertising, understanding data and analytics, building out, foundational structures to understand the president's message and how to deliver it. There's considerable things that come from just understanding how to build out the infrastructure to be able to communicate with millions and tens of millions of people and how to effectively spend $500-600 million.
500 or 600?
Minimum.
I heard you say at one point up to $1 billion.
It could, but I'm talking about all the infrastructures, like the Republican Party is going to spend money, the outside groups will spend money. Look, we could close in at the campaign itself, $650, $750. We'll know. We've already raised over $150 million, I believe, at this point, and we still got a long 19 months to go.
Raised from
small dollars. 95% of all of our money comes in through small dollars. We have, most people don't like to say this on the media, but we raised more money than Hillary and Bernie combined last cycle, and more than Obama in the 12 cycle as well. No candidate has ever raised more small dollars than Donald Trump.
What is the difference? You hear a lot from Democrats talking about small dollar donors, in fact, in some ways making politics a little bit cleaner, less affected by corporate interests.
Yeah,
is that your view?
Well, look, the president is connecting with people across the country. He's a grassroots movement of the lost Americans, the people who were being left behind, the people that weren't having a voice anymore. And one nice thing about small dollar donations is it lets people connect and know they're buying into the movement. And this president continues to do that. He's continued to grow on that. Our prospecting numbers now are numbers people have never seen before. I hope to have 40-50 million people direct contacts by Election Day.
What does that mean, direct contacts?
So every campaign tries to go out and generate data. How do I connect to you by cell phone? How do I connect to you by email? So that I don't have to run an advertisement and pay CBS to get to you. I can just contact you. So even in 2016, our numbers were pretty high at 10 million for most campaigns. Most campaigns probably right now on the Democrat side would be shocked if they have 1 million, 2 million. Maybe Bernie will have 4 or something. I don't know.
That's email addresses. That's
cell phone numbers. We'll have right now. We're already passing 30-some million, and we're on course to probably go to 40-50 million, which is almost every voter that will vote for us for presidency. I can just call them or email them.
So explain how that fits into the digital strategy. That means I'm sitting in rural Iowa. You want me to vote for President Trump. Are you targeting me specifically?
Yeah. So what I do,
you're changing your message based on where someone
think
is.
about it more in a business sense. Currently you own an iPhone, and the new iPhone's coming out. So Apple, what they want to do is they want to find you now, talk to you now, and say when the new iPhone comes out that day, they're able to send you an email and say, look at the new greatest thing coming, come buy it. So right now we're 2 years out. The market gets very tough and expensive as you get very close to the end. And then you have to just blast and go. What I can do now is I can go across America and say, hey, here's a voter in Minnesota that if I get 26,000 of these perfect people to show up that didn't show up last time, I can flip that state. So what I do, go find them now. We're spending millions of dollars a month, light years ahead of any campaign in history, to build the foundation of who we need to market to, what we need to understand, what we need to say to them, and how to exactly deliver to them.
Where are you most focused? What
well, there's some key states. Look, I think the president expanded and changed the map. Obviously, we have to go back and win Michigan again, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. We plan on also being in Minnesota very soon. I think New Mexico is in play in 2020. I think New Hampshire. I think we continue to grow the map. I think Nevada, even Colorado. And so those are states we did not win in 2016 that I think are open for 2020.
But the idea in the past, as you brought up, TV ads is the traditional way, or has been, or rallies where you have someone going out and having face-to-face or door-to-door contact. Like, how much of the ground game is still part of the strategy for you now?
Huge amount. So we're still building one of the largest ground games in history. So I'll give you some numbers. In 2016, we had 700,000 about volunteers. We plan on 1.6 million volunteers for 2020.
And that's people going door to door?
Connected, well, all different kinds of things. They'll be connected through technology on your phone, through apps and other development and different things. Some people might just hold block parties. Some people might be engaging on social media. Some people might be knocking door to door. But that is one person for every 13 people I need to touch to win this campaign. I mean, think about that in those key swing states. On top of that, I had 3,000 team leaders in 2016. We're on plans to have 90,000 of those in 2020. You know, we had 1,000 people on the ground employed. Now we're talking about 1,500. You know, we talk about 5,000 trained fellows. Now we're talking about 30,000 trained fellows. In every single metric, we're looking at being bigger, better and badder than we were in 2016. But this time, we're not out there trying to prove we can do something. The president has proved he has done it, and now we just have to deliver what he's done.
I want to ask you about some of the areas you're focusing on message-wise. Yeah. Immigration seems to be a recurrent theme in a lot of the messages you have on the websites and what's going out. Even the TV ad that I've seen, yeah. National security was the end message, big, bold letters. Yeah. Is immigration really your most sort of resonant campaign issue? Well,
it depends on how you look at it. I think immigration is one of the biggest problems and the largest crisis the country has going at our southern border. And I think that the president has continued to explain this. And I think you've seen it in recent numbers. The president has said this is a national crisis, and I think it's harder for Democrats to move away from that now. Look, I think the economy, jobs, there's a lot of things that are important. But the president has said, I'm going to fix immigration. I'm going to fix the illegal immigration problem at the southern border. And it's a big problem, and it's going to be fixed.
But you've had record surge of migrants, and the president's policies up till now have not stopped it. So how do you message when the data is against?
I think the president has done everything he can to slow that down. I think it would be epically worse. It's been a growing problem. I think the Democrats and unfortunately some people prior in our party have made it tougher to get this done. I think the president's going to continue to fight for it. Remember that, you know, there's 3 branches of government, and the other 2 have to step up as well, especially the first step of government, which is Congress, and they have not done anything to try to stop the problem. I think the president is going to continue to make changes. I think you saw that this week. He's going to continue to do the things he needs to do to stop the flow of migrants into this country, and that was his campaign promise. He's going to keep it.
So do you think you have to campaign against the Republicans in Congress? I mean, you just pointed to that branch of government as part of the problem.
Look, I've always been a person that said there was a lot of people the first couple of years that were on our side. I think that you now have Congress, Republicans, but we got to win back the House. And so that's something that's going to be important for 2020, and we're going to be supportive of the president in winning back the House. Getting Republicans back in power will be good. Look, I think a lot of those, as I always called them, rhinos, and a lot of people do, out of office have kind of left now. And I'm kind of glad to see them gone.
But even leadership, Mitch McConnell has said he doesn't want necessarily health care to be the framing issue for this campaign. That goes against what the president has said in terms of the party owning it. You aren't seeing immigration reform really move anywhere on Capitol Hill. Do you feel like you're still at odds with Republican leadership?
I'm not sitting there every day working on legislative affairs and working with Mitch McConnell. My job is to get the president reelected. So you would have to talk to legislative affairs guys of how that's going with Mitch. And House leadership as well, and all those people. I will tell you that the president, from a campaign promise, will continue to do everything he can. I think you saw him do that with his veto. I think you saw what he's going to do. He's going to keep the promise he made to the American people, and the American people voted for a president that was going to be strong on closing the borders or stopping illegal immigration. And I think that you have Democrats who believe in open borders. They continue to say that, and they've continued to say it over the years. And I think this president's going to do everything he can to keep that from happening.
How closely do you work with Stephen Miller on the messaging around immigration?
Me and Stephen talk. When we talk about the speeches, we're obviously in the same team, but I'm not sitting there with him talking about policy. That's his policy. My job is to take what the president wants and what his message is to the American people and amplify that and sell it in every household it needs to be sold.
Because, you know, the president this week decided to dismiss the Homeland Security Secretary, or she resigned officially. Yeah. A number of officials leaving that incredibly important domestic security agency. When you take actions like that, does it counteract the message you're trying to send?
No, I think the president's doing exactly what he's going to do, and he will put in strong people and continue to build up a stronger team in Homeland Security and to do the things he does to protect the southern border. I've always stood behind him, and I continue to stand behind him. And any moment I've ever doubted him, I've always been the one on the wrong side.
Some of the ads that you put together in the fall became controversial in terms of the messaging around immigration and 2018. You saw accusations of race baiting. CNN, Fox, uncomfortable with the ads.
Yeah, the ad the campaign put out was not that. There was some, I believe, other ads that were put out by other portions of the, but weren't the campaign. So I don't think anything we've ever put out has ever been anything like that. And the fact is, illegal immigration is not illegal immigration is not a race issue. Illegal immigration is about laws of this country. It's about the border. It's about people coming into this country in the right way, legally. It's not fair that one country and one border just gets unlimited door access while the rest of the world has to sit in line. I'm completely for a country that has legal immigration laws that are followed. And for being a person who lived on this close to the southern border for 20 years in San Antonio, Texas, I've seen the damage that illegal immigration can do, how it can hold down wages, what it can do to petty crime and other kinds of crimes. And I believe that if we don't solve the problem, and the president, and I believe he will, we're going to continue to have more and more problems in this country.
So to be clear, you had nothing to do with that ad?
I don't know which ad you're actually speaking about. I know the ads the campaign put out.
The ones that Fox and CNN say they were uncomfortable with.
Yeah, Fox and CNN, I think, actually end up, CBS showed our ad, I believe, on Monday Night Football. I believe, I don't know, this is like a year ago now. But no, I have no problem with the ads.
But you had nothing to do with them, is what you
No, the campaign ad we put out, I'm 100% stand by. It was not racial in any way. It's about illegal immigration. It's about the problems in the southern border. And the fake news media and the media want to publish and try to say these things because they're baited from the left and to make illegal immigration a race issue. And I just don't believe it is.
And so you feel comfortable with all the messaging that you've put
every ad I've ever put out in the campaign, I stand behind 100%.
Around the time of the shutdown, the 35-day shutdown we went through, there were fundraising ads going out to supporters saying, send a brick to Nancy.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Nancy being Speaker of the House, of course.
Yeah.
And this was a way to raise funds.
Yep.
How successful was a campaign?
Oh, that one was great. That was, a campaign like that could raise $3-4 million.
From these small dollar donors.
From small dollar donors. They want to be.
How does that work?
Well, they want to be part of an activity. They want to be involved, and this is a way that they got to buy a foam brick and get it labeled with their name and sent to Nancy Pelosi's office and say, build the wall. It's a way for them, in somewhere in the middle of Nebraska, who's so far from the system but wants to be involved, wants to help protect our nation, and says this is a way for them to put $25, $45 and say, look, I want to make a difference. We do that with T-shirts, we do that with hats. We've sold, we're closing on selling our 1 millionth red MAGA hat. Those are $45 a piece. Do the math there really quick. It's $45 million. So those kind of things, this president has changed the game in way merchandise, rallies, the entire experience of being part of the political movement. He's changed it.
But beyond the branding, the value to you campaign-wise is that you retain that information.
I retain information, and we get to keep the net proceeds. And those net proceeds are small dollars. So remember, you only can raise up to $2,800 per cycle per person in America when you're what's called hard dollars in politics. So those money, it's hard to get. We can't take checks that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. The campaign can only take them at $2,800 at a time. So getting tons of people to give you $65 and $45, millions of people and tens of millions of people like we do, is what powers us. And it's what's allowing to do us the ground game, the data operations we have, the revolutionary app and technology we're building. It's empowered by people giving $25 all across the country.
But I'm curious, how does that affect the messaging? I mean, if these are people who feel motivated enough or want to be activist enough to give on the particular issue, is the president changing his messaging to match that, or is his agenda driven by the White House?
No. You're kind of twisting that a little bit.
Well, explain it.
So what happens is the president sets his policies. These are what they are. Now, those policies have a range of things. One person at 1300 Elm Street could really care about immigration. But at 1305 Elm Street, they could really care about tariff policy. Now, that doesn't mean we're changing what the president's message is to them. We're showing them the part of the message that's right for them. So at 1300 Elm Street about immigration, yes, they're going to see ads probably much more about the wall and what's going on in illegal immigration and how the president's preventing that. And then saying, hey, donate a couple dollars, help get signed up, become a volunteer, come to a rally. And we know those things. So what we're doing is we're understanding the electorate and understanding what issues matter to them and then showing them the portions of that. Because the president has so many promises he's kept, so many promises that are on the website, promiseskept.com. You know, people can't just sit there and go through them like it's Wikipedia. So we take the ones that matter to them and show them based off who they are.
And how much can you actually know about someone based on what text they've sent? I mean, do you know how they voted in the past or what motivated them last time?
So the Republican Party, under kind of previous leadership to myself, under Katie Walsh and her husband Mike Shields, they went out and built this thing called the Data Trust back after the kind of the disaster of the Romney election. And what they did was, and the Republican Party started to put money into investing, saying we need to understand how people are voting, how people consume information, and started to build one of the largest databases in the world to understand what people are. They've done that. The Democrats now are playing dramatic and trying to play desperate catch-up because they recognized how smart the Republican Party was in building this. So now, literally, I can say, hey, find me all the people in Ohio that care about this issue, voted this way, did this, and is most likely and predict via AI will do that. And the Republican Party can now provide over to me a universe of people attached into social media and or possibly by text message or different ways and say, hey, these are the people that are saying in the criteria you're speaking about.
You know, President Obama used social media in his campaigning, but what you're describing is, you say Democrats playing catch up. How did Republicans get ahead on this?
Well, I think the Republicans did a very smart thing as a party. I was not part of the infrastructure then. I've only learned it in hindsight. But what they did was, and we're continuing to do this now with the small dollar portions and increasing things with Win Red. But what they did was they said, look, we need to get all the sister committees, everything together, the campaigns all together. And like if you're running for a race, in a Republican race in Indiana for a state legislator, wouldn't that data that you get on that field be great then when we go to national? And if all the Republicans work together and we compile that into a single database, all the polling, all the information, and then we use modern technology to look over that, we'll be light years ahead after time. The problem was the Democrat Party under the previous president and under Hillary Clinton's running kept all the data within them. And what they did was they kept that. So every time they had a changeover from kind of the leadership, they had to start all over again. And that put them in a perpetual loss behind the Republican Party, who said, no, the data is going to be the parties and the candidates will come in and use it.
And you said before, I think to my 60 Minutes colleague, Leslie Stahl, Facebook. It was the highway President Trump rode in on, you said, essentially, and that the Democrats made a mistake by not engaging with them enough. Well, how important is Facebook this time around?
Facebook's going to be important. Look, Facebook is one of the most consumed media points in America. I always say this, eyeballs are finite, and you only have so much you can put them a day, right? 16 hours a day, unless you're Donald Trump, and then it's like 22 hours a day of how much you can put your eyes at anything, right? And so when you're doing that, if the average American spends 3-4 hours a day on Facebook, as long as that number doesn't change, that's why CBS and all these stations put so much video up on Facebook. Because now, instead of watching their TV, they're watching their phone and they're watching it through that media portal. So as long as those people stay there, it'll be very useful. The difference is I had 4 months to do it last time, or 5 months, and this time I had about 30 months to do it. So that puts a considerable change to the plan. And there's a lot of things I'm not speaking about here that gives me a lot of opportunity to do to still make whole-scale changes to the way elections are run, especially on the ground.
What do you mean?
Well, that's the secret sauce. We'll have to do that interview after the next election.
We'll hold you to that. But when you talk about Facebook, they've been very loud about changes they've made to, they say, cut back or make it more clear when they're putting ads out that are politically
they're all over
motivated.
the place.
You don't think that the regulations that they've done of themselves have really made a difference?
Oh, they won't affect us that much. I mean, look.
Why not?
Look, I think the Palo Alto Mafia, as I call them out there in California, are going to do everything they can to stop Donald Trump secretly in some biased way. That whether or not we see it on the top or whether it's somewhere in the below, there's nothing more than they want to make them all selves dinner parties go more easy.
Is it harder to use it for political purposes?
No, they have not. That's not the right word. Is it harder? No. Have they tried to make it a little bit more expensive? Yes, but that's actually probably a benefit to us now. We have more money than the other side has. So, that means they're going to get less also. I mean, the rules are flat. The problems with the bias are much more into the algorithms of the social posts, how people can message, the connections that people can be made. But this is why we've gotten way ahead of it from the president, and I've spoken with him multiple times about this. Is that's where the prospecting we were talking about earlier. If I already have everybody, I don't need them that way. If I already have your cell phone number for 50 million people by the time election comes, I don't have to find those same 50 million people now on Facebook. I just call you.
So you've already got it. So any regulation at this point is not going to change your ability to use Facebook.
Yeah.
There was, as you know, the intelligence community came out and said that this group called the Internet Research Agency, based out of Moscow, was basically manipulating things, to put it mildly, online, including on Facebook. Have any of the changes aimed at that impacted you?
I have to argue the word mild.
I
have to argue the word mildly. I think it was more than mild. I think it was 2 salt bowls and the largest salad bowl in the history of the world. It's just what I always explain it is everything I've seen. I've never seen the backroom evidence. I've only seen what's been published.
Of Russian interference.
The Russian interference. But it would be like the amount of information that's done on social media for the 2016 election. Take Madison Square Garden, fill it up with salad, take 2 pieces of salt, throw it in, eat the entire salad and say you can taste those 2 pieces of salt. If you can do that, then that was about how much was in there. The point is there's trillions and trillions of connections, messages, and things that were put up online. And if anyone found, $2,000 worth or 2,500 grand worth or this and that, and say that affected a nation of 300, 400 million people and affected how it worked, then those guys would be the greatest marketers in the history of the universe and should sell everything every day, because that would be the most unbelievable thing ever done. Because it's just not possible. And any marketer, any professional marketer will tell you can't do that. I can't even fill up a restaurant on a Friday night with that much money.
You're arguing it can't be as effective as being credited, but not that it happened in the
I'm not
first
saying
place.
it didn't happen. Who knows all that happened on Facebook? Facebook doesn't even know, I think, everything happens on Facebook. That's how big it is. That's like telling the mall cop that knows every single thing that's happened every place in the mall because he's there. It's just, there's the amount of data processing through Facebook fills up entire fields of Virginia, fields of supercomputers going for miles, in California. Apple builds data centers the size of twice Dallas Cowboy Stadium. People don't understand how much information this is. And to think that a few little files and posts change that much data is just, it's a Democrat talking point.
Well, it's a bipartisan group in the Senate that's reviewing what happened during the election, and social media is going to be part of that.
Yeah,
Do you think there needs to be regulation and legislation?
I always think smart regulation works.
You're kind of describing it as impossible to control. You're saying the company can't control it.
That's why we have free speech in America.
But
it's so different than trying to control people.
Influence.
Yeah, well, I think, Facebook could probably do that a lot easier. I never understood why I couldn't do that. But, Russian IP addresses, okay, that's their corporate decision to make. I think that, trying to shut down what people say, what people do, and as Twitter did with conversational health, is a one-way course to totalitarianism and to a destroyed country where we don't have free speech anymore. However, I think a free, open thing. I think humans and Americans need to be smart to understand what they read. Whether it comes from the New York Times, CBS, or any other outlet, or any other person should read it and say, is this true, and make their own choices. No different than if they're listening to their neighbor talk about their other neighbor and say, is that true? Of gossip. It exists at every level and every place, and it's never going anywhere.
How many rallies are we going to see President Trump out there doing?
Oh, a lot.
One a week? More?
Not right now or later.
The Times reported that he's feeling a little tired, and that we're not going to see more than about 1 campaign event per day.
Campaign event per day? Look, first of all, I don't know where that report is, and I haven't heard that. And first of all, I've never seen this president be tired. When that day comes, then I could get a day off. So
you're not having a hard time getting him to commit to campaigning?
No, this president loves being president and loves campaigning and loves this country. So I've never seen him go, I'm tired, I want to slow down. That blows my mind. That's kind of like telling me I'm short and have a lot of hair. So it's funny. But I do think that we'll ramp up over time. You remember, this campaign is set up earlier than any campaign in history. The Democrats are coming out earlier than history. So, we also don't want to just do too many rallies, spend too much money too early. But we're going to get out there. We have another one we're announcing here soon. We'll continue to get back on the road. But we're still 19 months out. You remember, he hadn't even announced for presidency in the 2016 cycle yet.
What Democrats have impressed you so far? Who's mastering the digital game?
I don't know. Do you have the book full of all the people? Like I turned
20?
pages. None of them right now. I'm not real worried about any of them right now. I think they're going to beat up each other so much. I'm expecting another 15. I think by next weekend it seems like, and it's one a day now. I think. But
Beto O'Rourke, Bernie Sanders, they've been given credit for building out in the digital space, connecting with people that way.
Yeah, and none of them have even touched us in one metric yet.
No one's got you worried. You don't think anyone's doing it well?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying no one's caught us at it well.
Our numbers run for it in 2016.
But him and Hillary combined still didn't touch us. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, I'm not worried about it. They can play catch up all they want. I think the president has put a great team and God thankfully has trusted in me and Jared Kushner and others to build a team that is I think changing the way it's done. And I think look, nobody in Republican politics has ever been close to this kind of enthusiasm and small dollar excitement.
How often do you talk to the president and to Jared?
Well, Jared, a lot. We're friends. We were friends before. And, people don't understand, not know me on TV is. I've been friends with his family for almost a decade. So I've known them clearly before politics. Some weeks with the president, seems like I talk to him every day, and then other weeks it's a couple of times. It depends. He's president. So I'll be with him tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have to take his call. You always know it's his call, too. It's, and that call might come at 5 a.m. It might come at 11 p.m. Mm-hmm. It's one of those lessons of boss that doesn't like to sleep much. But, and tomorrow I'll be with him all day. Well, this show's recorded, sorry. Tomorrow, as in in Wednesday, I was with him all day. And, it's always fun to be on the road with him.
But how involved is he in some of these decisions on messaging and rallies and location? Is that you pitching him or vice versa?
So I always explain it like this. He is the captain of the ship. He is the engineer of the Trump train. He is the campaign manager, the communications manager, the finance director, coalitions director, all things. My job is to be the Trump conductor. My job is to keep the cars together, keep them running on time, get them to the place they need to go.
Can you tell him no?
Yeah, of course I could.
You can tell him when he's wrong?
Yeah, of course. Doesn't mean that we're still going to do it my way. I have a very good relationship with him. In honesty, I've worked for him almost 9 years. I've only had one argument with him ever.
What was that about?
That was in 2016, which was we talked about on 60 Minutes.
He didn't like how much you were spending on
He didn't like how much I spent on digital.
But
I was spending $100 million. I mean, for the first time ever, it's probably an expected argument. I look back at it, I'm shocked he didn't yell at me more about it, and I'm like, when I really saw how much we spent at the end. But, I believed, the family believed, and at the end he believed. And so, and I think he's definitely a believer now. There's a lot of myths about how the way he talks to people and he's mean to people, whatever. Like the guy's, he couldn't be more respectful to me. You're spending upwards of $100 million on digital this time. Oh, I'll spend more than that. I think I'm already closing on, this whole cycle or just, we have to talk, they're gonna have to recreate questions now for our campaign since it's a 30-month campaign instead of a 5-month campaign. Right. So our campaign's going to have to be told in years now instead of a cycle. We'll probably spend hundreds of millions. And I think we've already spent 50, 60 million. On digital? Yeah. I don't know. I have to look at the numbers. They published it the other day in the New York Times. We're almost 2 million a month. So, everything you're talking about is being done in a very different way. You're a disruptor. The president also likes championing that. But you're talking now to people like Karl Rove, a Bush advisor. Yeah. So since you've come to Washington, so to speak, has that changed you? That's a loaded question on a lot of things. Yes, it's changed me. I have a lot less faith in the system. When you're all the way in San Antonio, the U.S. government seems like you really understand how swampy it is until you get here, and then you really weather and the people figure out how swampy it is, right? And so I like the South, and I like to go back. I think as a disruptor, though, yes, in a history of, I think that those who don't understand history are due to repeat it in a positive or negative way. And for me not to understand what every predecessor of mine did and what they understood and how they thought, regardless of the technology at the time, would be doing a disservice to my boss.
So do you coordinate with Karl Rove?
It's not a coordination, it's a learning process. Hey, what did you do? Tell me your stories. What were the worst moments you had? What were the best moments? If you did it over again, what do you think you would do? How'd you handle this situation? Education, there's not a lot of people running around that have won elections on the Republican side or the Democrat side. I mean, the last guy to win a re-election is Karl Rove and Melman in 2004 for Republican. And before that, it was Reagan that won a re-election. So it's not like there's a club you can go to and there's just all these re-electing winning campaign managers. You can say, hey, you're on, So
they're telling you how to build out a ground game.
No, not talk. No, now you're saying that. I'm asking them for historical context. I think that, they don't know what I know, and some things I don't know what they know. But they've had to live through it. And Karl's given me some great things afterwards, said, you know what? If I did it again, I would have done this, or I wouldn't have done that. And hindsight is a great weapon to have when you're up in front of it again.
So you like the establishment, but sometimes.
I don't like the establishment. Karl, you'll have to ask Karl if he's the establishment. Look, I ask people that aren't in the establishment too. I have Tea Party people. Look, the thing is knowledge is power, and I like the diversity of knowledge. And I'm going to use all of it I can to help get President Trump reelected again in 2020.
What did you learn from 2018 and losing control of the House? Do you have regrets?
I was not in charge of it. So the campaign went in and did more than ever, but it was only still a couple $1 million. Again, drop in the bucket compared to hundreds of millions of dollars that were spent in the 2018 cycle. I think we learned some things, though. We learned things about data. There was expectations. We're losing suburban moms, and wasn't true, never showed up in the data. That's just another Democrat talking point to make moms think it's okay to leave. Who knows why? I don't think they will leave when they figure out they're going to lose their private insurance. But, all these things are going to happen. I think we'll be just fine. That wasn't an untrue fact. I looked through all the data. It wasn't there. Those are the things that are good. It's good because I get to see more data and we learn things. And it's going to make us better for 2020 because we saw how people reacted in 2018 and we know what the truth is versus, what pundits and data pundits think.
Will you be campaigning against any Republicans in 2020?
I don't have any intentions. I mean, the president.
Because the president last time around.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I
don't
think so.
Didn't think we're on the.
You'd have to ask him that.
You're not.
I think the president will single out any person, regardless of anything, if he's not doing what he thinks is best for this country and what the American people voted him for.
One of the areas you targeted heavily in 2016 was rural America. A lot of farmers in this country are dealing with the impact of this trade war and the retaliatory tariffs. How do you counteract that? They're feeling some pain. Can you get them to show up for you in 2020?
I think they'll show up in big numbers. I think that the president has done considerable things for the farmers. I think the farmers are behind him in big numbers. I think you'll see that when you'll see the polling numbers come out in Iowa and Kansas, Nebraska. I don't think that's a problem. I think I've actually sat and talked to a farmer in Iowa that said, you know what? We have to stop what China is doing. We have to stop the theft of intellectual property and the forced transfer and the other things they're doing.
Do you need a trade deal, though, to campaign effectively?
No, look, I think the president will effectively already on this message. I think he's already done great things. I don't think that fight ever goes away. I think there's always going to, it's a big world, and there's always going to be somebody that's going to be trying to take advantage of us, just like, as the president tweeted, I think this morning again about Europe. And I think that that's a continual fight, and that fight will always be there because people are always trying to get rich off of our wealth. And we need to protect our country and protect our people. And if people want to see increasing wages and better livelihood, then they need to understand the president's fighting for your pocketbook every day.
Any other White House officials going to join the Trump campaign?
I don't know. Now, there's several I'd like to have. There's good people. I'm always happy to take a fellow Trumpian who wants to come out and fight the good fight and help get President Trump elected in 2020.
Lastly, do you write tweets for the president?
Not right now. No, I have before. I have before. Yeah. I've said that before on TV. Mm-hmm. Mainly, he would, when he would say somebody else is writing them. But I'll tell you, the president is definitely a master tweeter. I could write a book afterwards on his tweet theory, and so I love it. And it's he is for a man myself who spent over 2 decades in marketing, PR, and advertising. I have never seen anybody with the ability to brand something so quickly and understand and control the message as well as him. He is one of the best branders and marketers that will ever go down in history.
Brad Parscale, thank you for joining
Thank you.
us.